I have a question for you if you've already played Clair Expedition 33. If the story did not exist and if it wasn't this good, from the gameplay, world and mechanics alone, would you still enjoy this game? Now for those who are here for the review, let's start. I absolutely enjoyed Clair Expedition 33, and if you don't want to watch this video, yes, I highly recommend playing this game. But it has some problems and well, everyone is different, so it might not be for you. I'll touch upon what I feel are the important points of the game and towards the end list it out so you can judge for yourself. The game released on 24th April 2025, it's a debut title from studio Standfall Interactives, a new studio with just 30 or so people. It's standing at a 92 on Metacritic with a user score of 9.7, which is the highest ever recorded till date. There's a lot of buzz going on around here. They've reportedly sold over 1 million copies in just 3 days, even the French President Macron himself praised it. It's clear it's a work of passion. Starting with the story, and let me tell you, if you are a story person and care nothing else about the rest, you should 100% play this game. The story is a masterpiece, it's really up there with the likes of Last of Us and Red Dead. In short, you have this paintress who paints a number onto a monolith, and every year she reduces it by 1. Every person of that age just disappears or dies, so society has decided that they will go on an expedition to try and stop this paintress before the inevitable doom of humanity. Currently the number 33 is painted, hence Expedition number 33. The story is serious, it's dark, gritty, a lot of mystery, suspense, and it's unpredictable. The first half of the game is building it all up. You get more information, you simultaneously get more confused with what's going on. There are more questions than answers in this stage. The second half slowly gives you these answers and the ending really delivers it all. There are well-written characters, voice acting is exceptional, music is just insane. I've been playing OSTs in the background for a couple of days now. I'm not a story person, but I can assure you the story here is phenomenal. Hell, if you are a music person, might as well play it for the music itself. Very quickly, let's look at graphics and performance. The game looks stunning, it's a unique design more towards the realistic style and feel very premium. The monster design and skill animations are very pleasant to look at. The game is also very well optimized. I played on PC, maxed out, I only had 1 crash and 1 visual bug throughout my playthrough, which later I realized was probably because I hadn't updated my driver. On PS5, the game will give you 30 and 60 FPS options depending on the mode, and the Pro will run it effortlessly. Now the gameplay is story driven and is heavily inspired by traditional JRPGs. It is mostly instanced. The zones have beautiful themes with some exploration to do. Anything from upgrade materials, optional boss fights, collectibles and merchants. There's also an open world for the purpose of navigation instead of a typical menu. This world is full of portals which drop you into another zone. These can be activities like dungeon, minigames, platforming puzzles and boss fights. And finally you have a camp where you interact with your party members. The loop is very simple. You finish an act, go to the camp, interact with your members. This will open part of the world. You may explore this if you want. If not, go for the next act. Now here's the problem with the gameplay. For one, there is no map, or minimap for that matter, which is an interesting design, but you get lost in what feels like a maze, trying to decide on which path to take, either for the story or for the optional stuff. And it does not help that once you locate an NPC, you have no other way than to memorize their location in case you couldn't afford some stuff they had to offer. Speaking of optional stuff, some of the dungeons and boss fights are quite challenging. There's no indication for level requirements, so you might end up fighting bosses you do no damage towards. The game does not hold your hand, it is not a walk in the park. Let's discuss combat so we can understand this better. It is a turn-based system with some interactive elements. Your party members consist of up to 3 members, each with different playstyles. You have options to dodge, block, or even jump away from attacks, which will in turn generate action points. These action points can then be used for abilities, which also has some form of interactions. You simply have to press one button at the right time. You can also aim down to shoot at enemies and their weak points. As you progress, new combat mechanics are introduced, which keeps it a little fresh. It is a challenging game, somewhat comparable to Souls-like games, where you absolutely have to memorize enemy patterns. Either that, or you completely obliterate them by grinding your character up. The feeling here is very similar. A dodge and parry window can be quite unforgiving. Enemies hit really hard, especially from Act 3 onwards. Act 3 is also where I found enemy scaling to be an issue. However, there is a story mode, but it really trivializes the game, making it not so fun. I think jumping into Act 3 without some grinding is a miserable experience, but if you do decide to grind, there is a risk of getting so insanely overpowered that you end up doing millions in damage numbers. Prior to Act 3, this is not an issue because your damage is capped. Personally, I wouldn't want that to happen. Especially if it's story content. The devs have put a lot of effort into designing some of the best boss battles, and you could easily end up skipping all of that with some crazy damage numbers. Really not my cup of tea, so you have to be careful. Side content can be considered endgame after you finish the main story. On progression, we get attribute points and skill points as you level up, which you distribute among your desired stats and skills respectively. We also have weapons with unique passives and perks. Then we have the Pictos, which are additional passives. All of these can be upgraded. The combination of these systems allow for some very in-depth customization options. I've spent hours trying to finalize builds and character synergies, and when it clicks, it's very satisfying. The Picto though, I would argue is unnecessarily convoluted, perhaps because of the UI design along with the sheer quantity. And it does not help that some of the Pictos, especially the defensive ones, are kind of garbage. Offense seems to be the best defense here, given the difficulty of parry timings and how quickly your HP just disappears. The best strategy is to end the fight as soon as possible. I said earlier that the combat feels refreshing at the start of an act, where they introduce some new mechanics, but the truth is towards the end, it does feel repetitive, in the very way they designed their turn-based system. There's also this unnecessary enemy density you will find in most of the zones. Inevitably, what happens is, once you build your character in a certain way, you repeat the exact same script when fighting. On Steam, the game is $50 USD. It has no microtransactions or paid content. I finished the story at around 30 hours and I'm currently playing through the end game, 40 hours in and still going. With that, we have covered most of what Expedition 33 has to offer. So here's the summary. If you are into JRPGs, this one is a no-brainer. Expedition 33 is easily one of the best JRPGs released in the last decade. The absolute highlights: the storytelling, visual direction, soundtrack, boss fights, and monster design. All of it comes together as a true artistic achievement. Now here's where it gets a bit more subjective. The combat is turn-based and can be quite punishing. You'll need to memorize enemy patterns to avoid damage, much like in the Souls-like games. Also, towards the very end of the game, once you figure out your build, you do follow a certain script of optimal battle commands. Again, I would like to emphasize this is as you move to the final acts. Level design leans towards instance zones, which are visually distinct, but could benefit more from clearer markers for main story paths. Ad fights or regular enemy encounters tend to be overly frequent. Combine that with the script of battle I mentioned earlier, the loop gets pretty boring and start to feel tedious. On the flip side, the boss battles are phenomenal. Creative, well-placed, and challenging in all the right ways. Customization is impressively deep, but would benefit from refinement. The UI feels a little clustered, and many defensive build options seem underwhelming or simply unnecessary. From Act 3 onwards, the power scaling could have used better balancing. If not in a controlled environment, you either continue quite underpowered or get insanely overpowered. To answer the question I posted at the start, would I still enjoy the game knowing all of this? Yes, I will, but I will not hold it on the same pedestal. Clair Expedition 33, as it stands, is a clear Game of the Year contender. Its story, its art, and its music are so breathtakingly well done that the game's minor flaws are either easily overlooked or completely lost in the immersive experience. As players, we're simply that pulled away by its world and presentation. That's all from me, thanks for watching.